My father spent 30 years of his life preparing for the end of the world. He built a bunker beneath our farmhouse in rural Ohio back in 1994, stockpiled enough supplies to last a small family for months, and made sure I knew how to maintain every system from the generator to the water filtration. I spent most of my adult life thinking he was crazy, a paranoid old man who watched too many disaster movies and listened to too many late-night radio programs about government conspiracies and biblical prophecies. When he passed away 3 years ago, I inherited the farm and the bunker beneath it. I kept everything maintained out of respect for him, not because I believed any of it would ever matter. I have been underground for 14 days now. I do not think my father was crazy anymore. The bunker sits about 12 feet beneath the basement of the old Mercer farmhouse, roughly 12 miles outside of Crestwood, Ohio. You access it through a hatch hidden beneath a heavy steel shelving unit that takes real effort to move. My father designed it that way on purpose. He said if you could not move the shelf, you were not strong enough to deserve what was underneath. The space itself is modest but functional. The main room is about 20 feet by 15 feet, with reinforced concrete walls that sweat in the summer and stay cold in the winter. There is a small bathroom with a chemical toilet and a storage area my father packed with canned goods, medical supplies, water purification tablets, and enough batteries to last a decade. A diesel generator provides power, connected to a fuel reserve my father topped off every 6 months like clockwork. There is a manual ventilation system with filters he changed religiously, and a shortwave radio that can pick up signals from hundreds of miles away. There are no windows. The only way in or out is through that single steel hatch. I keep the radio on constantly now, scanning through frequencies, listening for other voices. Most channels are static. Some carry automated emergency broadcasts that repeat the same useless information over and over. Stay indoors. Avoid contact with infected individuals. Help is on the way. I stopped believing that last part around day 4. The silence is the hardest part of being down here. It presses against your ears until you start hearing things that are not there. Footsteps that turn out to be the generator cycling. Voices that are just the hum of the ventilation system. Your own heartbeat sounds like someone knocking. I have not seen another living person since day 3 of the outbreak. Let me tell you how it started. At least, how it started for me. I was at the farmhouse doing some maintenance on the water heater when everything fell apart. It was a Tuesday, around 4 in the afternoon. I heard shouting from across the field and looked out the kitchen window to see my neighbor Earl stumbling through the tall grass. Something was wrong with the way he was moving. His legs were not bending right, and his head was tilted at an angle that made my stomach turn. Another neighbor, a woman named Patricia, who lived about a mile down the road, had driven over to check on him. I watched her get out of her truck and walk toward Earl with her hand raised in greeting. I watched Earl lunge at her faster than any person should be able to move. I watched him tear into her throat with his teeth while she screamed. I ran to the basement. I moved the shelf. I climbed down into the bunker and sealed the hatch behind me. For the first 2 days, I could hear people screaming above ground. Not constantly, but often enough that I could not sleep. Car engines revving and then going silent. Gunshots in the distance. glass breaking somewhere in the farmhouse. I pressed my hands over my ears and waited for it to stop. By day 3, it did. The screaming stopped. The gunshots stopped. Everything went quiet in a way that felt worse than the noise. That is when the real horror began. The horror of silence. The horror of not knowing. 3 nights ago, something changed. I was lying on the cot my father had set up in the corner of the main room, staring at the concrete ceiling, when I heard it. A knock on the hatch. Not the frantic pounding I'd imagined the infected would make. Not the scraping of fingernails or the thud of fists. 3 deliberate knocks, evenly spaced, like someone was visiting a neighbor to borrow sugar. I did not move. I did not breathe. The knocking came again, 3 times. Then silence. I lay there for what must have been an hour. Every muscle in my body locked rigid, waiting for the sound to return. It did not. Eventually, I convinced myself I had imagined it, that the silence was playing tricks on me, that my mind was filling the void with whatever it feared most. The next morning, I picked up a new broadcast on the shortwave. A man's voice, calm but tired, giving coordinates for a safe zone about 60 miles north. He repeated the same message every hour on the hour, reading off numbers and directions like a recording. I wrote down the coordinates on the back of an old envelope my father had left in a drawer. I did not trust them, but I wrote them down anyway. That night, the knocking came again. This time, it was accompanied by a voice. A woman's voice, muffled by the steel and concrete between us, but unmistakably human. She was begging to be let in. She said her name was Grace. She said she had a child with her, a little boy, and that they had been running for days. She said she saw the farmhouse from the road and thought someone might be inside. I sat at the bottom of the ladder, my hand resting on the cold steel of the latch, and I listened. She was crying. I could hear her voice breaking as she pleaded. I could hear a child's voice too, small and scared, asking his mother why the man would not help them. I did not open the hatch. I am not proud of that. I need you to understand, whoever you are reading this, that I am not proud of what I did, but you do not know what it is like down here. You do not know how the isolation twists your thinking, how the fear wraps around every decision until you cannot tell the difference between caution and cowardice. What if she was bitten? What if she was leading others to me? What if it was not really a woman at all? I heard them leave eventually. I heard the footsteps fade. I heard the child ask where they were going to go now. I did not sleep that night. I kept thinking about my father, about why he built this place. He always said the bunker could hold 6 people comfortably. He built it to save lives, not just his own. And here I was, using it to hide while a mother and child wandered in the dark with those things out there. The next morning, I made a decision. I climbed the ladder and opened the hatch for the first time in 12 days. The basement was empty. Dust floated in the pale light that filtered through the small ground-level window. Everything looked exactly as I had left it, undisturbed, waiting. I climbed the stairs to the main floor of the farmhouse with my father's old hunting rifle in my hands. The house was intact, windows unbroken, doors still locked. I moved through the rooms slowly, checking every corner, every closet, every shadow. Nothing. Then I looked outside. They were standing in the field. maybe 30 of them, scattered across the tall grass like scarecrows. They were not moving. They were not attacking. They were just standing there, their bodies swaying slightly in the breeze, their heads tilted upward. I recognized some of them. Earl was there, still wearing the flannel shirt he had on when I last saw him. Patricia was beside him, the wound on her throat visible even from this distance. The teenage girl who used to work at the gas station in Crestwood. The mail carrier who always waved when he drove past the farm. People I had known for years, people I had spoken to and laughed with and ignored, all standing in my field like they were waiting for something. They were all facing the farmhouse. They were all looking at the window where I was standing. I backed away slowly and returned to the bunker. I sealed the hatch and sat in the dark, trying to control my breathing. I could not shake the feeling that they knew, that they had always known, that they were just waiting for me to make a mistake. That afternoon, the radio broadcast changed. The same voice, the same calm tone. But the message was different. The man was not giving coordinates anymore. He was talking about the infected, about how they were changing, evolving. He said they were starting to work together. He said they were beginning to remember things from their old lives, places they had been, people they had known. He said they were hunting now, not just wandering. The broadcast cut out mid-sentence and did not return. That night, I heard footsteps above me. Not outside the farmhouse, inside it. Slow, deliberate steps, moving from room to room. I tracked the sound as it passed over my head, crossing the living room, pausing in the kitchen, moving toward the basement door. Each footfall sent a small shower of dust from the ceiling of the bunker, tiny particles catching the light from my lantern. The footsteps stopped directly above the hatch. Then I heard it. A knock. 3 times. The same rhythm as before. But this time, it was coming from inside the house. I did not sleep. I sat in the corner with the rifle across my knees and watched the hatch until my eyes burned. The knocking did not come again, but I could hear movement up there for hours, something pacing, something searching. The next morning, I heard a different sound, a tapping at the basement window.